At my dad's funeral, my brother mocked me, saying, "She's just here for the money." Then the lawyer arrived, and Dad's shocking video made him pale. My brother stood over our father's casket, adjusted his black tie, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "She's only here for the money." And I swear in that moment, the entire room turned to look at me like I was something rotten dragged in off the street. What Lucas didn't know was that Dad had left behind one final message, and by the time it finished playing, my brother's face had drained of all color. If you've ever been underestimated, misjudged, or painted as the villain in someone else's story, this one is going to hit deep. So go ahead, hit like, subscribe, and settle in, because today's story isn't just about revenge, it's about being seen when the person who wronged you thought you never would be. The first thing my brother did after the funeral service ended was humiliate me. The organ music had barely faded. People were still dabbing at their eyes. My father's casket, polished mahogany, gold handles, sat at the front of the chapel like a silent judge. I hadn't even stepped forward to say goodbye yet, and that's when Lucas leaned in close enough for me to smell the mint on his breath and said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "She's only here for the money." The words didn't just land, they detonated. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. I could feel the weight of their stares pressing against my skin. Aunt Carol's eyebrows lifted. A cousin I hadn't seen in years shook her head slightly, as if she'd suspected this all along. My throat tightened. "I came because he was my father," I managed to say. Lucas gave a soft, humorless laugh. He adjusted his cufflinks, gold, engraved with the Roberts Properties logo. "You stopped being his daughter a long time ago." And just like that, he rewrote history in front of an audience. I wasn't always the black sheep. When we were kids, Dad, William Roberts, used to take me fishing at Miller's Lake, just the two of us. Sunrise mist on the water, his thermos of black coffee, my hot chocolate. He'd tell me, "You've got patience, Emma. That's rare." Lucas hated those trips, said they were boring, said he'd rather be at the office with Dad reviewing blueprints. Even at 16, Lucas spoke the language of square footage and profit margins. I spoke in colors. So when I told Dad I'd been accepted into an art school instead of enrolling in the business program he lined up for me, I saw something in his face fracture. He didn't yell, he didn't forbid it. He just nodded once and said, "If that's what you want." But the fishing trips stopped after that. Lucas stepped in seamlessly. Internships turned into board meetings. Board meetings turned into executive authority. Meanwhile, I was living in tiny apartments with peeling paint, building a portfolio, scraping together rent from gallery commissions. I sent Dad invitations to every exhibition, every single one. He never came. Eventually, the call stopped. I told myself he had chosen Lucas. What I didn't know was that Lucas had chosen for him. Years later, I found out what had really happened. But standing in that funeral hall, being judged like a gold digger, I still believed the distance was my fault. Lucas thrived on that belief. He'd send occasional cold texts. "Dad's busy. He doesn't think you'd be interested. He's disappointed, Emma." Disappointed. That word became a splinter in my chest. So when Dad fell ill, I didn't even know until 2 days before he died. 2 days. And now Lucas was using my absence as proof of my greed. It was masterful. Cruel, but masterful. The chapel doors creaked open. Every head turned. In walked Mr. Davenport, Dad's longtime attorney. Tall, gray-haired, precise. The kind of man who never wasted words. He didn't offer condolences. He didn't smile. Per William Roberts' explicit instructions, he said evenly, "The will and final message will be presented immediately." Final message? Lucas's confidence didn't waver. He even smirked slightly, like this was a formality before his coronation. We moved into a smaller reception room. The air felt heavy, stale, like something was about to break. Davenport placed a small USB drive on the table. "Your father requested this be played in full. No interruptions." Lucas chuckled. Of course he did. The screen flickered on, and there he was, my father. Weaker than I remembered, thinner, but unmistakably him. "If you're watching this," Dad began, voice gravel but steady, "it means I didn't fix what I should have." My chest tightened instantly. I owe someone here an apology. Lucas shifted in his chair. For years, I believed my daughter abandoned this family. My breath caught. I believed she rejected everything I built. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the television. But 6 months ago, something didn't sit right with me. Lucas went rigid. I hired a private investigator. A ripple of confusion moved through the room. What he found, Dad continued slowly, was disturbing. He described intercepted emails, deleted gallery invitations, voicemails erased before he heard them. Office staff instructed not to forward certain messages. My messages. I learned, Dad said, voice cracking for the first time, that my son manipulated communication between me and Emma. Lucas shot to his feet. "This is absurd." "Sit down," Davenport said calmly. Dad's eyes on the screen looked tired. Emma never stopped reaching out. The words hit like a tidal wave. I was too proud to question what I was told, and for that I am deeply sorry. Tears blurred my vision. Lucas's face had gone pale. "To correct my failure," Dad continued, "I amended my will." Silence. "The majority ownership of Robert's properties will transfer to my daughter, Emma Williams." Someone gasped audibly. Lucas didn't move. He didn't blink. In addition, a foundation for art education will be established in her name. Art education. He had been listening. He had been watching, even when I thought he wasn't. "To my son," Dad finished quietly, "I leave what remains, in the hope that one day he understands love is not a competition." The screen went black. Lucas looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under him. "This isn't valid," he whispered. Davenport calmly produced documentation, dates, signatures, witnesses, medical evaluations confirming sound mind. Lucas's empire, the one he thought was guaranteed, had evaporated in under 5 minutes. He turned toward me, eyes burning. "You manipulated him." For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. "I never had to," I said quietly, and that was the truth. Lucas contested the will. Of course he did. He tried claiming Dad wasn't mentally fit, tried arguing emotional coercion, tried spinning the narrative one last time. But Dad had anticipated everything. The investigators' reports were airtight. Time-stamped records, IT forensics, witness statements from staff Lucas had pressured. Every move he made to isolate me, documented. When the judge upheld the will, Lucas didn't explode. He deflated. The first board meeting after the ruling was almost poetic. Lucas sat at the long oak conference table, but not at the head. I did. Executives whispered, curious, skeptical. Was I just the art girl? I felt the tremor in my hands as I opened the meeting. Then I remembered something Dad used to say, "Patience, Em. I will not dismantle Robert's properties." I began steadily. "I will strengthen it." Eyes lifted. "But 10% of annual profits will now fund the Roberts Creative Initiative, providing art education to underfunded schools." Silence. Then nods. Approval. Lucas stared at the table, jaw tight. He had tried to erase me. Now my name was written into the company's future. That was the revenge. Not screaming, not cruelty, but legacy. Sometimes the people who sabotage you are the ones who smile at family dinners. Sometimes the loudest accusations come from the guiltiest mouths. But the truth has a strange way of surfacing. And in the end, I didn't just inherit a company. I inherited proof. Proof that I was loved. Proof that I was seen. And no amount of manipulation could take that away. If this story gave you chills, let me know in the comments. Have you ever been falsely accused by someone close to you? And what would you have done in my place? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories where karma isn't rushed, it's earned. And when it arrives, it's unforgettable.